Last year, a Texas hospital vowed to end sex change procedures. A surgeon at Texas Children's Hospital, Dr. Eithan Haim, blew the whistle on the hospital after it secretly continued to provide sex change procedures and gender-affirming treatment for minors. That whistleblowing surgeon is now reportedly facing persecution by the federal government, and he's here with me today to tell his story. Dr. Eithan, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.
Of course. How do I say your last name? Is it Haim, Ham?
Yeah, the first name is actually Eithan.
Eithan?
It's a tough one.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it looks like Ethan.
Yeah, it's a Hebrew name, but my mom's German, so it's spelled in German phonetics.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Are they like from Germany, from Israel, or just like
Yeah, my dad's from
going?
Israel, my mom's from Germany.
Wow, and they met here in the U.S.?
In Israel.
Oh my gosh, what a cool story.
Yeah, my mom moved there when she was like 20 years old.
Oh my gosh, so you're really connected to so many different aspects of like the world and the political sphere right now.
Yeah, it's
which is crazy.
Yeah, it's a unique family lineage, I guess.
Yeah, it's really cool. All right, well, Dr. Eithan, why don't you start by adding some more color to that introduction that this did. What role were you in at the hospital? Were you doing these sex change procedures? What was going on there?
Yeah, I would never, if I was in a position where, as a resident, if I was assigned to this surgery, I would not have participated. But so my role was, I was a surgery resident at Baylor College of Medicine, which is affiliated with Texas Children's Hospital. So for the people who may not be familiar with what a residency is, it's the program that you pursue after medical school. And it usually lasts anywhere from 3 to 7 years for some specialties. In my case, it's 5 years. But it's the time that...
And it was surgery, right?
Yeah, general surgery.
Okay.
So, it's those 5 years that you spend training in that specialty. So you start off at the bottom of the rung, but then by the end of it, you're a chief resident. A lot of the surgeries you're doing independently, but it happened at these academic centers. I was at Baylor College of Medicine in Houston, Texas, which is one of the biggest programs, one of the most prestigious programs, surgical programs in the country. And one of the hospitals we spend the most time working at is Texas Children's.
Gotcha. Okay, so what year were you in the program when you came forward to blow the whistle?
So I was in my chief year, so my 5th year of training.
5th year, okay.
I started in 2018, and then I graduated in June of 2023. So the story came out in May of 2023, 1 month before.
Right, we'll get to that part. But when you came forward to blow the whistle, what made you want to come forward? Because my understanding, like you said, the timeline, these procedures at the time you blew the whistle were not outlawed in Texas, but they are now currently outlawed in Texas for minors only, but it's not required to get rid of the surgeries for adults alone. So why would you blow the whistle if it wasn't illegal yet?
Well, yeah, I think that depends on your interpretation of it. And yeah, I believe that they have always been illegal, and at the time they were happening. But also the hospital themselves had acknowledged that there was some potential legal liability. And this was in March of 2022, where the hospital had released a statement saying that we are shutting down the transgender program because of the legal liability, and in order to protect our staff from the legal ramifications. So in their statement that they put out, they had acknowledged that there was legal liability. But this was in response to a few weeks earlier, the Texas Attorney General releasing an opinion saying that it could be investigated as child abuse. So of course they released a statement in order to cover themselves, in order to signify to the people of Houston and Texas that this program is no longer happening. And it's clear the reason why, because they know that there's not broad support for it.
Right. So I guess I'm just a little confused. Unless you have some information that we don't have, my understanding of the surgical aspect of transgender healthcare is that you cannot obtain that health care until, in the state of Texas at least, and in most states, until over the age of 18. You can get the cross-sex hormones and the puberty blockers as a minor, but you're unable to do the actual surgeries until you're an adult. There are certain circumstances where if you're a 17-year-old girl, biological female, leaving for college in the fall, and you turn 18 in September, they'll cut your boobs off in May, a couple months before, but they generally don't do that. So are you saying that there was surgery happening on minors, or you just don't believe that this should be a thing happening at all?
Yeah. Well, so in May 17th, 2023 and that was the day after our story came out, was the day that the Texas Senate passed SB 14, which was the law that banned the use of hormones and puberty blockers for children under the age of 18. And in some of those interventions, they have to do surgery to implant these devices.
So I'm just confused about the timeline of whistleblowing. Did you whistleblow before or after that that bill became law? I understand the story came out a little bit after, did the story come out before? What was the timeline of that?
Yeah, so it was the day before. And because our story came out the day before the vote on SB 14, there were multiple Democrats who voted in favor of it because they didn't know this kind of thing was happening in their districts. The hospital had said that they were shutting down this program, but what they actually did is continue the program and expanded it into a multidisciplinary clinic and made it a hospital-wide priority within the system. So they had told the public one thing, but then behind closed doors, they did the exact opposite.
Okay, and just to clarify my question, was there surgery happening at Texas Children's Hospital for minors?
Yeah.
Was that happening?
Yeah.
Okay, what was the youngest patient that you saw, or not you specifically, that they were seeing that was getting surgery?
The specific surgery was an implantation of puberty blocking devices. And these are the surgeries that I'm aware of because I was in
so it's not the mutilation surgeries that were happening to minors.
Yeah, but I think that it's a common misconception that somehow these other surgeries like mastectomies or hysterectomies, vaginoplasties are more severe than the blockers of the hormones themselves. And I would say they're equally as bad, if not worse, because what happens is when you start taking these interventions, these medications, you have a puberty blocking device implanted into your arm. People have this sense that it's some type of middle ground because the effects are delayed, they're gradual, so people are more accepting of them. But what happens is these interventions affect the most critical components of your hormonal system. So your progression into adulthood is reliant upon this delicate, very delicate balance of hormones. And what this does is shut everything down. So every single day, you're just undergoing these microsurgeries that happen on a cellular level because there's no surgery in the world that can cause your bones to become brittle, that can affect the growth of your secondary sexual characteristics. There's no surgery that can change the way your brain develops. And what happens is over the course of years, these physical characteristics become so profoundly different that there's no possible way to go back. So this is just as radical as these surgeries, if not more, because it changes the person from the inside out in the most profound way possible. Because the end result is you have a 17, 18, 19-year-old man with the penis of an 11-year-old, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's,
it's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. When you speak of it, though, it does remind me of the debate on women's birth control so much because it's the way you speak of it. I know that it's not putting different, like the cross-sex hormones into the body, but it is putting fake hormones into the body. It all drives me crazy. Yeah. It's not good for you guys.
No, but the cross-sex hormones are even more severe because
worse.
These are mega doses of these hormones. And as a surgeon, we operate on people who take, high doses of steroids, things that affect your hormonal system. And you feel the tissues like with your hands. And it's a profound change. And And it's something you can see, something you can feel. And as a surgeon, you become very familiar with it. And especially the idea that they're doing this to 11, 12-year-old kids, which, to answer your question, the youngest was 11.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's crazy. Okay, I do want to move on to the next crazy part of your story. So again, if we're keeping in the timeline, SB 14, which is the bill in Texas that outlawed surgery for minors or any type of gender intervention for minors, was, you said, June 17th, correct?
May 17th.
May 17th. Okay, so May 17th. So your story comes out May 16th. Fast forward, we go to June 2023. So same year, couple weeks later. This is the day you graduate your surgical residency. So congratulations. And that same day, 2 Health and Human Service agents show up at your door saying that they were investigating you over a case regarding medical records. What happened there? What was that like for you?
Yeah. But I mean, just to clarify, so the story, the significance of it that came out on May 16th was, the hospital had said they shut down this program and they were lying to the public about it. They did so because there was legal liability. And, I knew this was a lie because I worked there. I did surgery there. So I knew I had a moral responsibility as an individual, but also a professional responsibility as a surgeon, because what they're doing to these children is unforgivable. So Christopher Rufo released a story on May 16th. It gets all over the news. A day later, the law SB 14 gets passed. So within 24 hours, the conduct we exposed was voted to become illegal. Some would argue, and I, including myself, that it was always illegal. More whistleblowers come out from the hospital expressing their shock with what was happening, because another whistleblower had actually worked in the clinic with these doctors. And then the CEO says he's going to shut down the program. So you have the second biggest state in the union who banned these interventions for children. Big deal. So a month later, on the day of my graduation, right? And it, really important because you spend 5 years before sacrificing so much. So the day you graduate's a big deal. And I get this aggressive knock on the door, and standing outside are 2 federal agents with Health and Human Services, show their badges and say that they're investigating the case regarding medical records. And it was clear why they were there. I mean, you kind of freak out in the moment, didn't know what to do, but deep down, you knew what it was about, because 1 month before we had challenged the dominant political ideology. We had released a story about the largest children's hospital in the world lying to the public about a program where they were manipulating, mutilating, and sterilizing young children. And that had an effect within 24 hours. And if just some random doctor like me, a nobody, could play a role in that type of story, then how many other doctors could do it? How many other nurses could do something like this? Because that's what happened. A few days later, someone else came out and blew the whistle. So they were there to make an example out of me.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And I feel like you're being humble. You played a large role. I mean, without coming forward, Chris couldn't have published the story. Without the story being published, there's a big chance that a lot of Democrats would have taken what you were seeing as Republican nonsense, Republican hearsay, blah, 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 blah. But what they charged you with, and I was kind of going through what your lawyers were rebutting about this, is that you had taken medical records from the children's hospital and given them over to Chris, which is the journalist that published your story, and that this was a violation of HIPAA laws. So for the audience out there, that's just the regular consent between your doctors to, you can have access to my medical information, but you can't share it with others. I understand that you explain stories to people just like you did here, but you weren't out there giving people's medical records out like candy. That's the way that the HHS, the Department of Justice, described this.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing is, and they haven't charged me with anything because there is nothing to charge. And when you look at the evidence in Rufo's story, right, there's nothing that could resemble quote unquote medical records, right? Exactly. So there's no argument to make that this had violated any legal statute. And
right, but when the HHS director showed up, I just want to give the audience some background on this. He wasn't just handed like, hey, the HHS is here to say you might have done something wrong or we don't like your politics. he was handed a target letter from the Department of Justice signed by the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Texas, and then notified that he was a potential target in a criminal investigation. But the best part is that there were no specifics on this piece of paper to tell him what his violations were. Do you even have any more information about that now? It sounds like they just gave this letter to you and they still don't have any information on how to charge you.
Yeah,
They just don't like you.
And the more information we have comes from the interactions my attorneys had with the prosecutor, which shows that she had no idea what she was investigating. She didn't know any facts of the case. It was so shocking that my attorneys had elected to blow the whistle themselves, taking a huge risk.
Yes, we have that letter.
Yeah.
We have that letter. Let's pull that up. So the letter from your lawyers was posted by Texas Representative Chip Roy, and your lawyers claim that the initial investigation into you was premised on a disproved falsehood, and that the DOJ prosecutor, like you said, didn't even review the evidence that she had on this before signing off on the letter to you. She just saw what she wanted to see and signed off on it. That's the allegation. And then she admitted she didn't have the information on the case, but she still recommended going after you.
Yeah.
What the heck?
Yeah, she even, in the letter, it describes how she said she would bring me to trial, even if she was confident they were going to lose, right? And in federal cases.
What is this woman, Fannie Willis of Texas?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what, but that's the situation, right? So it's like, it seems like a crazy comical situation, but the fact is they're using the powers of the most powerful federal leviathan in human history to go after doctors who expose the fact that the largest children's hospital in the world is doing this to children. And if they can go after me, they're going to go after you next, or your listeners, because I was just like every single one of you before all this happened, right? You believe in what's right and what's wrong, and you believe in sticking by your guns when it's the hard thing to do. But when you do it, the federal agency is going to come after you. They're going to try to destroy your life. But the thing is, I knew that what they had was absolutely meaningless, that there were no legal statutes being violated. That when our story came out, it was reviewed by a very, very intelligent, effective legal team to make sure everything was fine. So they were coming after us because, they wanted to make an example out of me. And we had 3 years of case material where the Biden government has been going after people just like me, right? I mean, it's not a mystery. It's like, at this point, the evidence is stacked too high to make any other conclusion. And of course, because we decided to fight back, right? That's what my attorneys had experienced. And that was in the letter they had released to Jim Jordan and Chip Roy.
Yeah. It's very interesting. Where in the process are you? Like, has the HHS and DOJ dropped this now that they don't have any real information on you? Or where do you stand in the legal process right now?
Legal purgatory. We have no idea. They haven't communicated with us. They haven't talked to us. They haven't let us know anything. But, after the agents came to my house in June 2023, right? In the few months after that, we knew that we had to fight back. We knew that we couldn't just lay down and allow this to happen. So, we hired attorneys that Rufo had put us in contact with. And these are, very, very serious people, fighters. But after a few months in understanding how corrupt this situation was, I knew I had to take the story public, because the nature of this corruption is that it thrives behind closed doors in secret. Whenever you tell the story, the corruption becomes self-evident. And the only way to hold people accountable is to garner support, gather resources, develop a plan, and execute that plan. And when you ask what stage of the process are we in right now, we're in the stage of executing our plan to hold these people accountable. Because I'm not just telling this story to raise funds to recover the hundreds of thousands of dollars I've lost. I mean, that's all gone. We're never going to get that back. We're going to be broke for a long time. And that's just a reality that we have to accept. But that was the best investment I ever made, because now what we're doing is we're going to go after the people who abuse their authority to come after me. Because if I can't blow the whistle like I did, then no other doctor or nurse will be able to do the same without having the federal government come after them. So the medical field will go into a state of darkness. And that's the situation that we cannot tolerate. That I'm not going to deliver my children into a world where that happens.
Yeah. I anticipate that they are going to actually have to drop this if they can't prosecute you with limited evidence. And I think that if they're in a phase where they haven't come with any receipts to you, I highly doubt it. But it can't change the reality that you're living in, which is you have had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on legal payments in order to get through this. And I understand that this has become a problem for your wife as well. She was trying to become a U.S. attorney of sorts, and that's proving difficult.
Well, she's working at DOJ. Yeah. So the prosecutor, she's a assistant U.S. attorney in the Southern District of Texas. My wife is a assistant U.S. attorney in the Northern District of Texas. But no,
oh my gosh.
One of the things, initially early on in the conversations, in the letter that my attorneys had released, after it was apparent that this prosecutor didn't know what the facts of the case were, right? She didn't know what she was investigating. She didn't know what legal statutes she was going to have to refer to, right? So essentially, this was being run by HHS and these agents, which we know is a highly politicized organization. So she didn't know anything about the case, but she knew enough to find out that my wife was undergoing an FBI background check because she had been hired as a assistant U.S. attorney. And she had brought my wife into it by saying, I don't first, see this being a problem for Andrea unless she continues to become difficult. And what she was referring to was when the agents first came to my apartment, June 23rd, 2023, it was initially just me sitting down with these agents that wanted to interview me, but we were getting ready for the graduation. So my wife comes out, sits down, we look at each other, and we knew we had to talk privately, so we go to our bedroom. And, we knew it was the wrong decision to talk to these agents without an attorney present. So, my wife had encouraged me to not speak with these agents without an attorney present, which is a constitutional right. So what she was referring to was my wife being difficult about encouraging me to use constitutional rights. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, what world do we live in where you're considered difficult for executing your rights?
I mean, we're living in a world.
We'd have to call Hunter Biden the most difficult human in the world. Ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, these are things that this is the reality we live in, and we have to come to terms with that. And in order to fight back, we have to understand, this is a very serious situation. This is not just some story in the news when two agents come to your door. And that's why we can't just tell the story. We have to go on the offensive. So
yeah, and I think that's why we love to hear people like you speak out and push back, because yes, you're seeing the political persecution when it comes to certain cases in Donald Trump's case, right? Like the one in Georgia, most of the ones in New York, you're like, oh, that's political persecution on the highest level. We see that. But that's also somebody who has millions of dollars and he's a very wealthy man. He's very well off. He's going to be fine. It hits at a different level when we hear someone like you speak out. Or I'm in Nashville, so I'm very close to the Mount Juliet area, which is where I believe 11 pro-life just churchgoers that are pro-life were sitting outside of a abortion clinic, and they're now being attacked and targeted by the FBI and facing 11 years in jail simply for nothing other than just praying outside of an abortion clinic, which seems like their right to do, but they've created this whole act in order to go after people. And so I just wonder, what does it feel like when you look at political persecution on a high level, but what does it feel like when you actually go through it? Do you have a word to describe it?
No, but I think I maybe a metaphor. Yeah, I don't know. It feels like in the beginning, right? When these agents first came to my apartment, and a few minutes after they come in, they leave, and then we have this target letter, and we think, man, it's a bad situation. What do we do? And there's two options, right? It's like, do we bend the knee to this evil ideology? Do we live as like subjects, as peasants, to in order to preserve my ability to make a livelihood, or do we fight back, right? Do we assert our rights as citizens, as people who are given inalienable rights by God? And we decided the latter. And in the beginning, it's this terrifying prospect because you believe you're stepping into a world that's complete darkness, that's scary and it's dangerous, and you feel like no one's going to stand behind you. But then as you take each step into that world, even though you don't know what you're getting into, it starts illuminating, it starts to become brighter. You start to see, it's like when you step into a room and it's dark, and then your eyes start accommodating to the darkness. Your pupils start dilating. You start taking in this ambient light. And then as you go further into it and you start fighting, you live by these basic ideals and you stick by your guns. You realize that it's this world of brightness, of goodness, and it's the best place I could possibly be, because for the first time, you can look yourself in the mirror and you know that you don't have to live in lies. You can speak the truth. You don't have to apologize for it. And even though there's risks, even though we've lost a lot, there's no other way to live. So to know that I can play a role in holding these people accountable, or at least these people squirming in their beds at night, gives me the greatest satisfaction imaginable. And if for all of your listeners, I would want them to, if there's one thing for them to understand, it's that when you're in this situation, to fight back, greatest feeling ever, to not apologize, to not bend the knee, because for the first time, you can live with dignity.
Yes, you are being so humble about the impact that you've had. You have created or not created, but you've shifted and shaped legislation in one of the biggest states in the union. You've had an impact on hundreds of thousands of countless kids, and you are now having an impact on a generation of nurses, doctors, people who might otherwise be afraid to speak out. And I know that your advocacy only began when everything happened to you. I anticipate you and your wife are going to do incredible things to help the people that want to come and speak out just like you. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you. And if anyone wants to help in our legal fight, they can donate to givesendgo.com/Texas_whistleblower. And
awesome. We will link that below.
What's important for people to know is that it's not just for defense, right? At this point, we're on offense. We're going up to DC soon. We're going to make sure that we get this investigation pursued through the House subcommittee on the weaponization of the DOJ. That's just one avenue we're pursuing. We've pursued amicus briefs in defense of SB 14, and then other things which I can't necessarily disclose until we start them yet. But yeah, that's what we're doing.
All right. Well, we'll be cheering you on here at Underreported Stories. Thanks so much.